years after the Taliban's return to power and the fall of Afghanistan's civilian leadership, realpolitik has come to define India's policy towards Kabul like never before. New Delhi is now openly engaging with the Taliban regime, even upgrading its mission to a full-fledged embassy, signaling not just a phase of normalization and tacit recognition, but strategic alignment, one that could not have been imagined if not witnessed with our own eyes in the last few days. Meanwhile, Pakistan is caught in a nightmare situation, receiving not just a bloody nose from the Taliban, but a very real two-front scenario with the Taliban-led Afghanistan becoming a sworn enemy of Islamabad. This is one of the most groundbreaking events for India's strategic posture and a bitter irony for Pakistan. So what is happening and why does it matter? This is Shubhangi Sharma and you're watching Finepoint. Let's dive in. As Pakistan launches cross-border strikes and drone attacks on Afghan soil, Delhi and Kabul find themselves aligned against a shared adversary, Islamabad. Afghanistan has promised to continue standing with India against terror and not harming Indian interests from its soil. It has also invited India for reconstruction efforts after the earthquake, and India has also offered to help with Afghan refugees that were expelled by Pakistan. Meanwhile, Taliban has assured India that it stands with it in the fight against terror and will not allow any group to use their territory against others. India, meanwhile, stood with Kabul against Trump's Bagram plans. Now, here's what Taliban's Foreign Minister Muttaqi said while in New Delhi, and I quote, "During the 20-year struggle against the US occupation, there were many ups and downs, but not once did we give a statement against India." This irony is hard to miss. The same group that once burned Indian flags and sheltered anti-India terrorists is now hosting Indian diplomats, inviting Indian firms to mine on Afghan soil, and talking about standing with India against terror. What was once Islamabad's proxy is now New Delhi's potential partner. In fact, the level of engagement with this Taliban official was unprecedented during his India visit. He met S. Jaishankar, our External Affairs Minister. He met Afghan Hindus and Sikhs to discuss their religious properties. He met Indian journalists twice, first in a men-only session that drew backlash, then again with women reporters included. This indicated the sincerity of the two sides to accommodate each other's positions. Clearly, whatever is brewing between India and Afghanistan's new regime cannot be torpedoed by cultural differences. Moreover, the Taliban leader visited Deoband in Uttar Pradesh to engage with the Darul Uloom Deoband. Now, this has been read in many ways and rightly criticized, but think of why this was really allowed by Indian authorities in the first place, despite the optics. Strategically, this was a message to Pakistan, not to India. By engaging with India's Deobandis, the Taliban was going back to its ideological roots and separating itself from Pakistan's version of the Taliban ideology, which mixed the Pakistani state's interests with the Taliban's Islamic ideology. That means the Taliban no longer leans towards protecting Pakistan's interests or allowing its leaders to influence Taliban's Islamic and political decisions. And yes, this is complicated, it's a slippery slope and messy even, but when you're dealing with this part of the world, it's reassuring that Indian strategists know how to decode their ways and speak in their language. For Pakistan, which once believed it would dominate post-US Afghanistan, this is a bitter irony. The script has been flipped, and in this complex chessboard of regional politics, India appears to be several moves ahead. Pakistan did not see this coming at all. It believed that it could use Afghanistan for strategic depth against India and at the same time strike Afghanistan at will, use its air force against a regime that does not have a mature military, and control or influence the Taliban's decisions. Pakistan took the fight to the air, but Taliban brought it back down to the ground with guerrilla warfare, its strongest suit, and hunted down Pakistani soldiers. In simple words, Pakistan wanted a pliant Taliban, but it got a ferociously independent one. While cozying up to the United States and offering itself up for rare earth mining, oil drilling and other investments, Pakistan may have believed that it could play another nasty geopolitical game, one that could keep it relevant for a few more decades in the region. And that was the Bagram game. You see, the Trump administration has a newfound desire to take back the Bagram airbase in Afghanistan. US forces withdrew from this airbase just as they withdrew from all of Afghanistan when the Taliban drove them out in 2021. At the time, Pakistan celebrated the ouster of the Americans and sided with the Taliban, and this was after it aided America's war on terror against Taliban, which lasted 2 decades. Now remember, it was Pakistan that was one of the parties responsible for propping up the Taliban in the 1990s. Then it backed the USA's war against Taliban in lieu of military aid, political support and whatnot at the start of the 21st century. But while it backed the Americans against the Taliban, it also aided the Taliban and other terror groups like Al-Qaeda against the Americans, who did nothing about it because they needed Pakistan as a conduit for logistics as well as for intelligence and reconnaissance. Pakistan's military-industrial complex thrived through the years, leveraging its importance in the war. Now, the Taliban knows that no matter what Pakistan says in UN statements, Pakistan is likely to seek out dangerous strategies with Bagram in focus to cash in on its geographical position. The recent Pakistani airstrikes in Kabul reaffirmed Taliban's skepticism about Pakistan. All the talk of inviting the US to dig out Pakistan's supposed troves of mineral wealth will only remain talk as long as there are active insurgencies in Pakistan. And in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and Balochistan provinces, there are indeed active insurgencies led by the TTP, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, and the BLA, the Balochistan Liberation Army. China's CPEC investment is already in deep trouble, and it's a glaring reminder that an investment in Pakistan is a highly risky one. Now, these provinces, KPK and Balochistan, share the border with Afghanistan, and guess what? The Taliban does not recognize this border. The 2,600-kilometer-long Durand Line, drawn in 1893 by the British, ran through Pashtun lands, which ultimately led to Pakistan inheriting a large chunk of Pashtun lands. Now, Pashtuns are the dominant ethnicity in Afghanistan, and no Afghan regime has ever accepted this line, and the Pashtun Taliban obviously has no respect for it either. So when the Taliban took over Kabul, the celebrations in Pakistan were eventually cut short by frequent clashes at the border between Pakistan Army and the Taliban fighters. In the last 4 years, attacks by the TTP, the so-called bad Taliban, have grown, and the conflict between Pashtuns and the Pakistani state is exploding. Pakistan has been conducting airstrikes on its own territory, including civilian settlements. And just as Pakistan was dealing with the backlash against this massacre, it decided to conduct strikes inside Afghanistan, accusing it of sheltering the TTP. Meanwhile, the Taliban accuses Pakistan of supporting ISIS-K against it. So a long list of grievances is brewing on both sides, but the essential problem is one. Pakistan wants to control the Taliban, but the Taliban has other plans. Recent events are a rug pull for Pakistan. It has a two-front war scenario in its hands, having entered conflicts with both India and Afghanistan within months. Plus, the question of strategic depth is ringing loud in Islamabad. What happens if India marches in? For decades, Pakistan's military dreamt of strategic depth, a friendly Kabul that could serve as a rare base in case of war with India, kind of like a fallback zone. But geography is crucial. Pakistan is a narrow country, and its key assets are vulnerable to Indian attack. From Rawalpindi to Sargodha, all was struck by India in Operation Sindoor. So that's the example right there in 2025. So all in all, India's engagement with the Taliban-led Kabul at this scale is strategically uncharted territory, but one that can change geopolitical realities significantly in the region. It not only yields immense strategic leverage, it helps India maintain eyes and ears on the ground, undercut Pakistan's influence, and protect its infrastructure projects and security interests. More importantly, it helps position India as a responsible power, one that talks to all sides, delivers humanitarian aid, and still defends its national interests. India is also prepared for this. With the Chabahar port and the land transport infrastructure leading up to Afghanistan through Iran, it can materially sustain this strategic alignment with landlocked Afghanistan. Pakistan, meanwhile, is trapped in its own contradictions. Having built its Afghan policy on proxies and paranoia, it's now confronted by a Taliban that no longer obeys and an India that no longer hesitates.